and then we'll get going. Okay, so just before we start, we will take up to 6 questions on the situation back home regarding racism engulfing the sport. 2 from Jonathan Agnew, 2 from Sky Sports News, and then we'll throw 2 to the written media, and then we'll crack on with the cricket. So we'll head over to Aggers. Go ahead, Aggers, over to you.
Okay, thanks so much. Joe, have you spoken to Rafiq since his testimony? I mean, he seemed to make it pretty clear that he was unhappy with the statement that you gave before his testimony.
Yeah, we've exchanged a couple of messages since, quite recently, actually. And hopefully when we finish this tour, we'll get the opportunity to sit down and talk, about this whole situation, about how we can move the game forward. As I mentioned in my statement as well, along with talking to Azim, I wanted to speak to Lord Patel at the club, and those dialogues have started as well. So I think it's important that we keep finding ways of bettering the sport, finding ways how we can individually affect things for the better, and make a real change in this.
Do you recall the evenings that he talked about in his testimony, in which you were present, he claimed, in which there was offensive language used?
No, I stand by what I said. I don't recall those incidences, and if they are oversights on my part, then that's an area which we all have to learn from, and I have to learn from. And I think about things that have happened since then. There's been other things that have happened on the cricket field where I feel like I have stepped in and called things out, and I think that comes from growth and learning and understanding and education. And there's still further education that I need to undergo and develop myself further, and certainly within our game as well. I think everyone does. So I don't think I think there's so much work that has to be done. There's so much energy that has to be thrown into this, and there has to be a real want of drive to make a real difference. And I look at the group of players that are around this team right now, and the other 2 England men's teams. We've spent a lot of time talking about these topics and what's happened and how we can make a real difference. Certainly feel like there's a lot of good conversations happening, which hopefully can now follow into action, and that we can really start to drive the game from our position at the spear point of the sport. And that will only come in time through proving it and actually delivering on some of the things that we've discussed as a group and individually as well.
Okay, we'll go on to Rob Jones now from Sky Sports News. Go ahead, Rob.
Morning, Joe. You
Morning.
spoke there about how you'd spoken about it as a group and as players, everything that's happened. Is there a sort of shared sadness amongst those connected with Yorkshire that one of your former teammates did have to go through something like this and felt that he wasn't being listened to and he sort of ended his career in the way he did?
I think there's a huge amount of sadness from that, and I think a huge amount of learning has to be done off the back of it. We have to make sure that within the game this isn't something that happens again, and we have to do everything we can to make sure that it is as inclusive as it possibly can be. We continue to find ways of really making the game as diverse as possible, and championing that as well. You see what's happened in our white ball teams and our England teams over the recent past, and it's been a huge part of our success. It's been something that we've spoken about for a number of years now, a couple of years, where the culture of our dressing room and how we go about things and how we talk and learn from each other has been a massive step forward in terms of how we've gone about things on the field as well. Having that understanding of each other has definitely helped us with our performances along the way. And we all have to learn so much more, and we have to keep trying to find ways of, as I mentioned, educating ourselves further on this topic. But I think it's really important that we continue to keep trying to do that.
You mentioned a couple of moments ago that you have, since you've, I guess, become older and more experienced, there have been times when you've stepped in. What were the nature of those experiences? And also, do you feel you're in a group now where anyone in your test squad, if they heard something that wasn't right, any of those players would step in and address it?
Yeah, I think as well. I was referring to what happened in the West Indies a few years ago on the field, and I think this does. Obviously, we're talking about racism generally and on this topic, but I think further than that, discrimination in general, it's something that we have to look to stamp out all forms of discrimination as much as we can. And if there are mistakes made, we call them out straight away, and we find a way to keep improving the environments that we're playing in and working in. And I suppose going through those experiences, you sort of learn from each other and different things that your teammates experience as well, whether that be from things that's happened within games and things said from the crowd. You learn from what impact that has on guys that you care about, and you think, well, how can we make a difference moving forward? How can we change things? And I'm not saying that we've always got things completely right. We haven't, but we clearly have to keep looking to get better and really look to better our sport as much as we can individually, and have those conversations, those difficult conversations, those uncomfortable conversations sometimes, which will make this a lot better process and hopefully make our game better for everyone.
Thank you, Joe.
Thanks, Rob. Let's go to John Etheridge, please.
Morning. During his testimony, Azim said that use of the word Kevin as a sort of catch-all word to describe players of colour was an open secret in the England dressing room. Is that the case?
That's part of a live investigation, and I'm currently not able to discuss matters on that because of that investigation. Look, clearly that is a phrase which should never be used in any, whether it be dressing room, any part of society either. So, but as I mentioned, I can't go into that specifically.
Okay. How do you mean it's part of an investigation?
Sorry?
How do you mean it's part of an investigation?
I think that the ECB are going through an ongoing investigation, trying to find out more information on that. And I don't think I'm in a position where I can comment on that.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, do we have any more on this particular topic, and then we'll move on? Okay, Andrew Miller, I think. Yeah, last one on this one, then we'll move on to the cricket. Go ahead, Andrew.
Hi, Joe. Obviously, we've had Michael Vaughan, been in the spotlight as well as one of the senior guys in the Yorkshire dressing room a while back. I appreciate the investigation's ongoing, so specifics may be difficult. But just in terms of, I suppose, how language evolves and how things move on. I mean, a lot of stuff that's come out. Rafiq as well in 2011, his own slurs. Things have changed a lot in 10 years. Do you feel as though there's a lot of growing up that's gone on within dressing rooms already, and a lot of this stuff is, as when the investigation comes out, you'll be able to look back and realise that, yeah, okay, this sort of stuff did happen, and as you say, you weren't really aware of what you were listening to.
That could well be the case. I can only call upon my own personal experiences and what I can recall. But clearly, there is things that have happened, especially at Yorkshire, which are unacceptable, and we have to be better. We have to learn from, and we got to make sure that. I think the most important thing from now is we can't change the past, but we can make sure moving forward that we shape the future, and we do everything we can to make all of the dressing rooms within cricket, whether that be professional, international, club cricket, we make them as inclusive as we possibly can, and make sure that no one at any stage feels like they're treated differently. And that obviously has to start at the top of the game, and we have to do everything we can to make sure that we are well educated. I think over time the world does change and people become more aware of certain things, and probably have done, especially in the recent past. But that doesn't mean it stops there. We've got so much more to learn and work on and improve. This it has to get better, and we have to keep finding ways of doing that and turn into action. There's been some very good conversations had. I can only speak of most recently, the last couple of weeks, there's been a lot of talk around this group, and we've spent a lot of time with one another talking about this, and it's not an easy subject. It's very uncomfortable. It's horrible to hear some of the stories around cricket and experiences that people have lived through. So it's, we want to find ways of eradicating that and bettering it. And it's something that as a group we've thought about how can we offer more, and there's been stuff in place for a little while now which we've not been able to action due to COVID, but we're keen to develop and learn and educate ourselves in our own way, but also if there's ways that as an England team we can help society and use cricket as a vehicle for whether it's bringing communities together, then we'll absolutely try everything we can to do just that.
Thanks, Andrew. We're going to get onto the cricket. We'll go back to Jonathan Agnew, please.
Lovely. A couple, if that's okay. Thanks, Joe. The first test starts in 8 days' time. I just wonder if you've ever been in this sort of situation before, to a lack of preparation, and I mean for both teams, frankly. I mean all the hype, all the build-up, all the usual preparation there is for the first test at the Gabba, and you've barely been able to get outside. I mean, where are you? And also Australia at the moment.
Yeah, I think it's been unusual. Obviously having to spend a period of time in quarantine and training within that quarantine phase, and then obviously coming to Brisbane and the weather being as it has been, we haven't had that 3-day game as we would have liked. But ultimately, it was always going to be the case off the back of this World Cup that tomorrow was be the first day as a squad that we would get together as an Ashes squad with those World Cup guys joining us. So we always knew that this next phase, this next period of time was going to be the most crucial part in terms of doing everything we can collectively together, getting tight, getting clear, and using this as best as we can to ready ourselves. And I think that's going to be the real test for us. We've done a lot of brilliant planning in the last couple of years, and coming into this about mentally how we can be ready, how we can what's going to work on different surfaces and different grounds, and having a real good idea of how we're going to break down their team. But I suppose, as you mentioned, it's been unusual. It's been different to a lot of previous tours, whether that be here or elsewhere. But the guys have really taken the opportunities to get as much as they can from what they've had, and that's all you really can do in these situations, along with mentally making sure you're as ready as you can be. And it might be that in the next couple of days we get some similar weather and we don't get the time out there in the middle, and it's going to be just really important that whether it be you play those games in your mind a little bit more, and you visualize a little bit more, find different ways of making sure by that first ball comes down at the Gabba, we're in the best place possible to come out on top. Yeah,
and you're right. I've seen the forecast for Brisbane again tomorrow. I'm thinking of sort of a key selection like Stokes the bowler rather than Stokes the batsman. I mean, things like that. How the balance the team. How are you going to be able to judge that?
Well, again, we have to just judge it as best as we can with the information that's available to us. It's been great to have Ben back around the group and to see him back in training, and to be going through his work again. We'll have to gauge that closer to the time. But obviously we would benefit from having this game. If we don't, we'll have to be smart and work around it. As I said, prepare as best we can, both individually and as a squad as well.
Thanks, Joe. Thanks for this evening. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thanks. We'll go to Richard Gibson and then back to Rob Jones. Go ahead, Richard.
Morning, Joe. Or evening to you. Just wanted to extend a little bit what Agus was saying then. Given the weather forecast, and I guess, has it been confirmed that it's a first-class fixture, that this match is under first-class conditions?
It won't be a first-class fixture, but it will be played as close to the intensity of a first-class game as possible. Ideally we want that that intensity to be as high as we can, close to a test match as we can. The quality of players will be there from both teams, and I think because of the lack of preparation that we've had in that previous 3-day game, it just having that extra bit of flexibility, making sure we can get as many guys what they need throughout these 4 days is going to be crucial. But in terms of how we'll approach it as two teams, there's a lot of people that will want to prove things and that will want to show that they deserve an opportunity for that first test match. So I expect the standards to be very high, and I expect it to be very competitive, and so it should be. This is a really good chance for us to get ahead of things, or maybe get ahead of Australia in terms of preparation anyway, in terms of game time ahead of this series. And it would be silly for us to sort of just cozy our way through the 4 days. It has to be good, hard, proper cricket that's going to, that will benefit from going into the first test.
Would you be an advocate of this suggestion, or has it crossed your mind that, given that you've removed that first class status, that you might have a bit of wriggle room? Could you extend, if there was bad weather, could you extend it into a day to increase the intensity in terms of everyone getting what you want, so to play it over 5 days, for example?
I'm not sure is the perfectly honest answer. I don't know what the situation with in terms of using the facilities, using the grounds, whether we won't be allowed to play there because there might be grade cricket on. But certainly we'll be looking at finding ways to prepare as best we can and getting as much time outside as we can. So if there is some weather around, I know that we'll be making sure that there is something else available for us if we require it and need it going into that game.
Okay, and just finally from me, Ben Stokes took a blow to the forearm, I believe. Was that a bit of a concern? I mean, just to have him back, that when he then gets hit in the from Trotty in the nets.
Yeah, it was a little bit of a concern. Obviously, I think the wickets, because of the weather, have been slightly spicy, and guys have had to really get stuck in. And there has been a few little knocks here and there. To see Ben get hit like that was obviously a scary. We all know how crucial he is within our squad, but he seems to have come through it pretty well. He practiced again today, and again we'll keep assessing, making sure that doesn't have a prolonged effect on him, and it's going to be really important that he gets himself ready, both physically and mentally, for this series and to play a big part in it.
Thank you very much, mate. Thanks.
Thank you.
Let's go back to Rob Jones and then Gideon Brooks.
A couple of cricket ones, if I may, Joe. Firstly, from an Australia point of view, you've mentioned preparation not easy for you. From Australia's perspective, change of captain, do you expect the challenge to differ at all with Pat Cummins at the helm? And from someone who does a little bit of bowling, not as much as Pat, how difficult is it to be a captain and a bowler?
I'm not sure I'm in a position to really answer the bowling one. I don't think I do enough of that, as you mentioned. But and I certainly get, I probably get too emotional when I bowl, from a personal point of view. Look, I think from our point of view, it doesn't change anything. It doesn't change how we're going to prepare. It doesn't change the fact that we respect them as a team and what they will bring to this series. It's I think more than anything, I don't want us as a team to get sidetracked by what's happening in their camp. It's really important that we focus on ourselves and we ready ourselves as best we can. There's been a lot of other distractions for us in terms of the weather and our preparation. So it's really important that as I mentioned, this next phase, this next lead into the game, we get absolutely right. We get as much from it as we can, and we in the best position to hit the ground running when that first ball goes down.
And I heard Mark Wood say over the course of the weekend that he wanted to stick one up Australia, having had 2 tours where it has been so difficult. Give us a sense of just the burning desire to have a far better time and hopefully bring the urn home this time around.
Yeah, well, I know exactly what it's like to be on the wrong side of these series out here, and it's the dream, isn't it? As an England player to play in Australia and win, that is the dream. That's the cherry on top, if you like. And we feel we've got a brilliant opportunity ahead of us, and we've prepared as well as we can till now. If we can control our emotions, if we can play to our skill levels, and if we can be smart in certain situations and do things differently to how we've done them previous, then I believe we've got a brilliant chance to do something special here.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rob. Let's go Gideon, and then let's go with Gideon first, and then we'll come back.
Danny, I was going to ask about the captaincy, and Rob's pretty much covered that, so okay. I won't waste your time.
No worries. John, have you got one? John Etheridge?
Yeah, I was going to ask about the sort of Payne Cummings situation. I mean, did you keep an eye on what's been happening in the Aussie camp? You said you can't allow it to distract you.
Yeah, as I said, it's not really for us to worry about or concern ourselves about. For us, it's about readying ourselves as best we can, and playing against Pat. I know what a competitor he is, and I know what he brings to the game and to their team. So I expect him to do just that as a captain as well. But of course, it's really important that we focus properly on ourselves and we get the most out of this next lead-in, and we don't get distracted by anything that Australia are doing.
Sure, thanks.
Okay, last one, Will Macpherson.
Hi, Joe. I just wonder whether there's been any talk in the camp about families coming out with the situation with the new variant of the virus. I know your family are there and some others are as well, but is there concern that the plans that have been so carefully laid out might be kind of falling to pieces a little bit? Are there contingencies being drawn up?
I think that throughout this, the ECB has supported the players extremely well in trying to make sure they're as comfortable as possible throughout this whole period. That the families are, they know how integral they are to us individually, and especially off the back of the amount of cricket we've played in these environments. And I'm sure we're doing everything they can to make that situation as good as possible. As players, I think it's really important that we remember that we are in the hands of Australian government and local governments, and there's not really much more that we can do or say about it. We've got to just go about our business as normal. Trust that the guys above us to do as much as they can for us, and really concentrate as much as we can on the cricket. But I do think it's important that we talk about these things, so we don't let them fester on individuals. That we at the right times we try and make sure that no one's letting it affect them, whether it be affect their cricket or their time away from the cricket. And it's a really good opportunity to make sure that we are looking out for one another and getting really tight as a group.
Brilliant. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Joe, for joining us tonight. Just so everyone's aware, Joss Butler's going to be doing some media tomorrow with the Australian media, predominantly Australian media. So I'll send some recordings of that as and when we get that sorted out. We're still not sure on timings because of the weather that's due tomorrow. So we'll just have to take it tomorrow when we get a feel for the weather and the conditions of the game. So I'll be in touch once we've got more information. But thanks to everyone for joining us, and we'll catch you soon. Cheers.
Yeah, thanks to you two as well. Thanks so much.
Guys.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Cheers.